Welcome to Foundersuite. We make 4 tools that will help you raise capital. The first is our Investor CRM, which is what you see here. Use this to manage your investor funnel or investor pipeline. Sitting underneath the CRM is a database of investors. We have approximately 21,000 venture funds and 100,000 angels, family offices, fund of funds, PE firms, hedge funds, real estate investors, foundations, pensions, etc. Over on the left is our Investor Update tool. Use this to send out a regular newsletter to both any prospective investors as well as existing investors on your cap table. It looks good, investors love it, and you can track and see who's viewing your updates. You can also use this same tool to host your pitch deck. Like before, you can track and see who's viewing your deck. Last but not least, we have a Startup Docs collection. This is about 80 different templates, things like pitch decks, term sheets, cap tables, and a lot of other useful tools. Thanks, and if you have any questions, reach out to us at info@foundersuite.com. This is what your CRM looks like after you've been working on it a couple weeks. But of course, it didn't start out like this. It starts out blank. We can edit the round, or we can set up a new round up here. Let's just add a new round now. Give it a name. Pick a type, call it a priced round, equity round. Set up a dollar amount target and pick your currency. Okay, here's a new round we just created, and notice the $1 million target is shown up here. As I add commitments to the committed column, that dollar amount that I add for commitments will show up in this as a bar. So now I've got my round. My next step typically is to customize the workflow. Notice these columns. There are 3 columns that cannot be deleted. That's research, committed, or said no. However, you can relabel those, and you can also relabel, edit, or delete any of the other columns. You can also add columns over here, add new column. And a lot of users like to add columns to match their own workflow. For example, I often will have as a first step qualified. This means I have done some research on that investor and made sure they're a good fit. They're a qualified lead for me. So now that we've got our board set up, next step is often to invite any co-founders, advisors, or others that will be helping me out in my fundraise. So we go over here, settings, and then we go to team, and by clicking add new team member, entering their name, entering their email, we can invite them to be a member of my account. And I do this pretty effectively with a couple of my advisors, even a few of my actual investors are members of my account, and they can access my account. They can add investors, edit investors, add their names to investor prospects on my board, all that good stuff. So now I've shown you how to set up your account. Next, we will show you how to populate it with investors. Now that we've got our round set up, we want to start adding investors to our funnel. I can do that in one of 3 ways. I can start browsing the Find Investors tab. I will show you more on how to do that in just a moment. If you already have a list of investors, click Import CSV. I'll also show you that in a moment. Or we can add them one by one by clicking Add Investor. Let's start with that. I click Add Investor. This window pops up. I can either add an individual, this might be an angel investor, or I can add a firm. Start typing the name of the firm, and if they're in our database, we will pull some information and save you a couple keystrokes. So there's Homebrew Capital. Say I've already qualified them, I'll move them into that column. So this is how to add them one by one. Let me show you how to import your own list of investors. This is relevant if you have an Excel file or CSV of investors you've collected. Click Import CSV. Next, I will be prompted to either import investors. This is relevant if you have a list of individuals, such as angels, or import VC fund. This is relevant if you have a list of firms. And basically it creates two different types of cards. This is a single individual record, and this is a firm card that you can nest multiple contact persons underneath. So I'm going to pick import VC fund. Next, I'll find my investor list. I have a list of New York investors. Next, I will be asked to match the column titles in my Excel file or CSV with the fields in the Investor CRM. And it's often, when you get to this page, it's often a good idea to take a look at the list of fields in the CRM and maybe spend some time cleaning up your Excel or CSV before importing. I'll give you just one example. We have a field for location. It's just a single field. So if in your spreadsheet you have different columns for address, city, state, country, it's best to merge those into a single field so that you don't have to clean this up later. All right, so spend some time cleaning up your Excel file, CSV, and then let's match the column titles as best we can. So company, we go to fund name, primary contact person, first contact person name, secondary contact, second contact person name, third contact. We don't have a default field for that, so I'm going to put that third contact into a custom field. Email for contact number 1 would be my first contact person email. Email for contact person 2, second contact email. Email for contact 3, I'll put in a custom field. Area, that's going to be my location. The website is going to be a public page. LinkedIn, also a public page. Twitter, a public page. Funds raised, we don't actually have a field for that. You could put it in fund details, or I could put it in a custom field. Put it in a custom field. Usually fund details is a description, but in this case my spreadsheet did not have a description. And then comments, going to put that in VC fund notes. So notice I matched everything in my spreadsheet. I have a few extra fields in the CRM. That's okay. All right, 22 out of 20 investors imported. That's great. There they are. And, let's say some of these folks I've already been in contact with, so maybe I move them into the relevant columns. If I pitched Bain Capital, Union Square Ventures, maybe I'm in diligence with Insight Venture Partners. You move these around into the relevant columns. If you mess up this import, what I would typically do is navigate to a different round and then just go and delete that entire board and start over. The reason we make you navigate to a different round to delete a round is just so you don't accidentally delete the round you're working in. But let's go back to this. It worked. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to us. There are a few nuances, as you saw. It's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of matching up columns to fields. But give us an email, info@foundersuite.com. Thank you. Okay, our round is starting to shape up nicely. We're starting to build that target list. As a general rule of thumb, if you're at the pre-seed or angel or seed stage, I recommend having at least 100, maybe even 200 or 300 names on your target list. If you're at Series A, Series B, those numbers go down more like 30 to 50. But having a healthy top of your funnel will help you raise money down the line. So another way to add to our board here is by using the Find Investors tab. In here we have roughly 21,000 venture capital firms and about 100,000 angels, family offices, fund of funds, PE firms, hedge funds, foundations, pensions. You can search by a particular fund name if you know the fund name. There's first round capital, so I can add that to my board. Pick which partners or other folks I want to include there. Okay, so that's how to search by name. Clear that out. I can also search purely by type. And this is especially relevant if I'm looking for more of a long tail investor. Maybe I want to look at family offices or, for example, real estate private equity. So these are types of investors. So I'm just going to look at real estate private equity for fun. All right, so I have a huge list of real estate private equity investors here. You see I have 102 pages, roughly 20 per page. So pretty extensive list here. And I might just kind of browse these pages, skim the profiles. Some folks will often do a Control F or Command F on a Mac to search for certain keywords, which makes skimming the pages a little bit quicker. But if anyone looks interesting, let's say Michael Cronin looks good to me, add him to my board. With one click, he's added to my target list. Let's just say Henry as well. All right, so that was looking at types of investors. Let me get rid of that search. Now I want to look maybe by industry. Let's say I'm a marketplace business. So we've got about 2,000 investors in our tag for marketplaces. Maybe I want to add another one as well. If I add multiple marketplaces, it actually will expand the search. So I'm going to add software as a service or SaaS. And notice I've got to pick from the drop-down list. I can't actually freeform it in this field. So start typing the name of an industry that's most relevant to you. All right, so pretty good list here. I've got roughly 5,000 when I combine marketplaces and SaaS. And now maybe I want to actually narrow that list down by a location. All right, so this is quite a bit more manageable. I've got marketplaces and SaaS and then narrowed down by a location. And that's about 50 pages, so pretty focused there. And whenever I find someone that looks pretty interesting, add them to my board. Let me just show you a few other ways people use the search. Remember, this is a very large database, about 120,000 investors. If you're in more of a smaller market, it might be useful to look just by location name, like Detroit, Michigan. Not a huge list here, 136 names, so it might be pretty useful just to search by this category. Let's see. And if you're in Michigan, perhaps expand the search by adding a few relevant cities around there. And that CAPTCHA pops up every now and then. I apologize for that. So we've got a couple hundred in Detroit and Ann Arbor, Michigan. And again, anyone looks interesting, Techstars Mobility Accelerator, you want to apply to that, add that to your board. So a few different ways here. The best bet is just experiment and combine and play around with this. Again, search by the name of the investor, search just by the type of the investor, or if you're searching by industry, adding multiple industries will expand the search. Likewise, if you search only by location, adding multiple locations will expand the search. If you combine an industry and a location, it will narrow down the results. If you have any questions about this, just reach out to us, info@foundersuite.com. Okay, now that you've figured out how to set up your round, add team members, and add investors to your board, let me show you how to use the actual CRM functionality of this. So as you can see here, it's all very drag and drop. Let's go back to this populated board. And essentially, what you want to be doing is moving all these cards through the stages of your funnel. Think of this like a sales funnel. You're identifying a list of targets and prospects. You're qualifying them. You're getting introduced or reaching out to them. Hopefully those introductions or outreach lead to pitch meetings. Pitch meetings lead to diligence. And ultimately, you're trying to drive all these investors into either the committed or the no column. Ideally, it's the committed column. It's all very drag and drop, right? So as you're meeting with and making progress with these investors, just drag and drop their cards across the board. And practically speaking, the way I like to work on this is I'll come in and I'll just work on my contacted list. These are folks I've been introduced to or otherwise contacted. And I kind of just look at each one. What can I do to nudge Brad Feld into setting up a pitch meeting, right? And likewise with Tim Draper, I've had a meeting with him. I pitched, gave a pitch. What is he waiting on? Is he waiting on customer references? Is he waiting on some feedback? Are we setting up a second meeting? What can I do to nudge that along into diligence and term sheet discussions, right? And that's kind of practically how you work on your fundraise. That's how you work your funnel. Let me show you a few of the CRM features of this. I'm going to jump to a different board. So again, customize the columns as you like. In my own board, I like to create a column for where I collect my connectors. That's just a personal preference. I've also made a few personalized columns like this qualified and mapped. This is kind of a holding pen for investors I've identified as a good fit, and mapped means I've figured out a good person to ask for the introduction. Let's just open up a card so you can see the actual CRM stuff in here. So Michael Walsh is the target investor. It's a good practice to assign an owner. If you're working on your fundraise with co-founders or advisors, every investor should have an owner. Let's give him Hilda to follow up with. And that owner means it's a single person to really take responsibility and drive that investor to a yes or no decision. Okay, so some of the CRM stuff. You can add notes about that investor here. All your activities. Emails, calls, meetings, tasks, let's say you set up a meeting with Michael. All right, give it a date. Time is optional, duration is optional. If you want, you can push it out to the calendar of your choice so it shows up on your calendar with an alert. And then I just add that activity and it becomes added to the activity stream. You can also attach files, right? What is the pitch deck or term sheet that you sent Michael? Add it here so it becomes part of this record. And then maybe my favorite part is you can connect your email so that all email threads with this person get automatically pulled in. These are both the emails that you send to the investor and the responses from the investor. To connect your email, let's show you that real quick. Go over to settings, and it's simply under integrations. While I'm here, once you've connected your email, there are two options. You can share emails across the team. We call this high visibility fundraising. If you're raising money with co-founders or other people, and you want your entire team involved in the fundraise to be able to see everyone else's email conversations with investors, turn that on here. So back to the board, and I showed you what to do with Michael, all the functionality there. One last thing here is this to-do list and metrics tab. Let's take a look at that. So what this is a list of every upcoming and or overdue activity across all investors. This is kind of your macro view of your fundraise, everything that's happening, all the things that have to be done, who the owner is, who the investor is. You can see some basic metrics about your round, how much you have committed, total number of investors added, all that good stuff. And we will soon be adding an activity feed here. You can also add activities from this specific section if you wish. All right, so that's the CRM functionality of your round. If you have any questions, reach out to us, info@foundersuite.com. Let me show you a couple other useful features within Foundersuite. Let's go over here to our Investor Update tool. This is a tool to help you build a regular update or executive sum or newsletter to go out to investors. And I strongly recommend you do this. Very few founders do this or do it regularly, but it will actually set you apart from 99% of the other founders out there if you do this well. And there are two thoughts before I show you exactly how to do this. There are two kind of philosophies around doing investor updates. One is if you already have some investors or even advisors or other stakeholders, do an update probably every month, every other month or quarterly to keep them up to date with what is going on with your business and to activate them. Ask for help. And notice we have a little section here called How Can You Help? So, engage your existing investors with a regular update. The other is to prospective investors. These are investors that you want to raise money from down the line. A great hack is to reach out to investors. Let's say you're raising money, 6 months from now. Start reaching out to investors on your target list now, saying, hey, I'm not raising money right now, but I will be, in about 6 months from now. May I have your permission to add you to my newsletter distribution list? I'd love to show you what we're doing. And a lot of investors will be happy to do that. So you start sending them a newsletter in advance of raising money. And by the time you're actually ready to raise money, you've warmed them up. It's a great way to nurture leads, right? Again, back to our sales metaphor, sending a regular newsletter to prospective investors is nurturing those leads. So this is how we build an update. We've basically got these 6 sections as the default sections. For each one, we tell you or we give you some prompts of what to write. Again, on the 2 different types of investor updates, for the one going out to prospective investors, I would probably delete the challenges. Maybe include something about that, but a lot of times the one to prospective investors is just positive things going on. But the one to the investors that have already invested in you, definitely keep this. A few other sections. So you can add and remove these sections as you want. If you want to add a new section, just drag and drop a text block, give it a title. You can also create a KPI table. And this is pretty nice. Investors love to see metrics. So pick whatever metrics you're tracking and want to share. Add the data here. And then another great kind of hack is to add a couple images. If you've got a cool product, add an image of that product. If you have a team, I'm assuming you do, add a picture of the team to every single update so the investors connect the name to the face. So add a few sections, scratch out some bullet points in each section. If you want to attach additional files, you can do that here. And then our next step is we publish this. Publishing it creates a unique URL. So let me show you what one looks like. So this is a real update to my investors. I did it not too long ago. This is the unique URL, but what investors are going to see looks like this. So of course this would be your logo, not mine. This would be your photo, not mine. Nice little navigation bar. This is clickable on the side. I like to include a little overview, just kind of a summary of what happened in the last quarter, and then a little more detail on Q3 highlights. So what are the main things we achieved last quarter? We launched a new homepage, so I put a screenshot of that in here. We have our KPI table, very clean, easy to process and digest. A few challenges, and then I like to include with a looking ahead. And this is a nice bookend, right? Up here I've got my Q3 highlights, things that we did, and then here's what we're going to do. Here, everything exciting upcoming in the next quarter. And then, let me go back to the app. I can either just copy that report URL. If I want to use my own mailing program, I just copy this URL. Or I can send this out either to everyone in my CRM or to specific boards Maybe I only want to send it to, prospective investors, for example. Or I can send it to specific stages, and stage in this case means columns. So if I want to send it just to my, call it FS investors, and I only want to send it to my committed investors, I can do that. There's a little text box here. You can edit this if you want to kind of personalize the metrics or personalize the comments, the note, and then you hit send, it'll fire it off. After you've sent it or copied the URL and sent it through your own system, come back later and you can actually track and see who read your update and how much time they spent on your update. And this is really powerful, especially it's nice to know if my existing investors are looking at my materials, but this is really powerful for prospective investors. If you have 100 investors in your funnel and you're sending them a monthly update and 50 of them are opening it and viewing it, and 20 of those are spending 2 or 3 minutes or more, those are really your buyers. Those are the people that are interested in your next round. You can also use this same tool a couple other ways. So we actually put our investor deck up on here. I just imported all our slides as images. So it's just pretty simple, pretty clean. It's not quite as slick as some of the dedicated pitch deck hosting tools, but it does the job. I can send this URL out to investors, and likewise I can track and see if they open it. So a few different tools you can play with here. This is a pretty powerful tool, and we get a lot of good feedback from investors. They really like this format. So definitely play around with it. Check it out. And as always, if you have any questions, just give us an email, info@foundersuite.com. We've covered most of how to use Foundersuite to build your funnel, to run a process when fundraising, to edit and use the CRM, to use the investor update tool. Let me show you just a few extra bells and whistles in Foundersuite. One is this Startup Docs collection. This is about 80 different templates. These are PDFs, PowerPoints, Excel files, Word files. And we have them grouped by category. So if you're raising money, we have a collection of pitch decks, term sheets, cap tables, some pretty good templates in here. This is one of my favorite, the VC Dilution Scenario Analyzer. This opens up a spreadsheet that will show you how much equity you retain over multiple rounds. So if you raise multiple rounds, how your equity diminishes. Cap table is also good to get started with. So poke around here. These all open up in a Google Doc. So if you want to save it to your desktop, you would just export it. I'll just show you how to do that real quick. Let's open up the cap table builder. All right, so this is a Google file. And so I can either make a copy into your own Google Drive or download it as an Excel file to your hard drive or to your desktop. So that is our Startup Docs collection. And then last but not least, we've compiled some other products, some discounts and deals within Founders Market. These are just some deals if you want to get a free year of Zendesk or a discount for a couple months on Intercom. We built this a bit of a side project. When we actually raised our seed round, we went out and said, all right, what are the tools that we want to use now that we are funded? Obviously, we need a customer support. We need accounting. We need payroll. We need a payment system. We need some space. So these are basically a lot of the tools that we found useful when we raised money. And we went out and got discounts and deals on them. That concludes the tour. If you have any questions about how to use Foundersuite, please reach out anytime, info@foundersuite.com. Thank you.